Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about questions to ask on your first Squarespace design call. If you have never freelanced before or never done a freelance intro call, an intro consultation, this video is for you. One of the most helpful things that helped me with my first call was a 10 to 15 minute conversation I had with one of my good friends at the time, right before my first call. He walked me through what I needed to talk about, he walked me through how to do an upsell, and he walked me through closing and landing the project. So this video may be that for you. Right before we hop into the actual questions, there's 3 things you want to think about as you begin. The first one is this. People do not pick the best option, they pick the safest option. Really consider that for a moment. People pick the safest option, not the best option. If it happens to be the best option and it's the safest, well, amazing. But overall, people pick the safest option over the best option, especially in design. Number 2, be personable. I think this is what actually helped me land my first 10 to 15 clients. It was not that I had the best portfolio, but that I was an actual human they can relate to. Some people hesitate when they go online and they find a new website and it just looks like a company and they have no idea about who runs it, who manages it, what their goals are, all of that. On my website and then on the call, I would always try to be personable. The way I would do this is right at the beginning of the call, I would ask, hey, where are you located? I'd find out more information about where they're at. I'd ask them about the weather. Or if they ask me, how am I doing? I would also reference the weather. Simple statements like that, even though I am not a big fan of small talk, simple statements like, hey, the weather today is beautiful, so I'm happy, make for a more human approach and a human side to the project before it begins. So I always recommend being personable. I think that was one of the things that really helped me grow from the beginning, and I still do it today. And number 3, to make sure we get our mind right, is this. As you start asking these questions, focus on defining their situation and the problem in the greatest level of detail possible. You do not want to assume you understand the problem. If you assume you understand the problem too soon, you may be verging on the wrong direction and the wrong path for the project before you even get started. So make sure you really define the problem. Yes, the current site may be hideous, it may be ugly, but that might not be the problem or the reason they're coming to you. So make sure you understand in great detail what the problem is and what the current situation is of the client. So let's get into the questions. Some of these are in order, some are not, but let's start with one that I definitely think is number 1. Even if they give you a breakdown in a questionnaire or a form they filled out initially to talk to you, this question I would still ask on the phone, which is, what is your business and what is your goal? And I would word it something like this. Hey client, I saw your initial request. Thank you for sending that in. Let's imagine I haven't seen that. Can you explain to me what your business is and what your goal is for this project? From there, the client's able to elaborate in a few sentences on the phone, and in that moment, they could have filled out the form a few days ago, in that moment, their current situation. This really gives you space to ask more questions and learn more about the project. During this time, I'm taking some notes, and then in that process, I'm trying to think of things that they may be assuming or they might just be saying, and I don't want to assume that I will want to clarify before we begin. And so that might lead you to some more questions there. The next question I would think about is this. Do you have a site up right now? And at this point of the video, it's good to say this. Some of these questions are going to be irrelevant because you already have this. So if they sent you a link for their current site, it doesn't make sense for you to ask, do you have a site up right now? But these follow-up questions will make sense. So let's act as if they didn't send you the original site. So you'll ask them this, do you have a site up right now? They'll say yes. Ask them for the domain and start taking a look at the site immediately while you're on the call with them. This is really important because at this point of the conversation, you could take a look at their site, see if there are any custom features that are beyond Squarespace or really complicated, and you could address it on the phone with the client. Maybe the client doesn't even want it. Often that is the case. I've seen things that the client has on their current site and it's a WordPress site and it's like this cool map feature with little dots that show you different areas that they're located or something, and they don't actually want that for their future site. Not a big deal. So you could have the conversation up front look for any major custom features. You don't want to get too technical because it's supposed to be a 20 or 30-minute call, but overall, it's a great way to get a feel for what they're looking for on their new site before you begin. And let me emphasize this point a little bit further. If you're new to this, don't be afraid to ask. The client is not going to reject you if you can't do one feature that they have on their current site. And you could bring it up like this. We can do it. We can bring it to life, although it's very custom and it'll cost a lot. And that way you put the ball in their hands so they can decide, do they want to do it? Do they want to approach it? And also too, you can let them know if it's even worth doing, if you're interested in doing that or not. If it's a very custom feature, really advanced, and it's hyper unique to their business, I might suggest it's actually not a great fit for Squarespace. So that's a whole nother conversation. But this is a place to clarify those things because you don't want to start a project, get 70% of the way in, spend a lot of time on it, and then both of you are upset because you can't get the site up that they want, and what they want is just way out of bounds for Squarespace. Next, this is an important question. Why did you choose Squarespace? When you ask the client this, you get a feel and understanding of why they like the platform. Maybe they saw the templates and thought they were beautiful, or maybe they found out that the backend is way easier to edit than, say, a WordPress or something else. Find out why they like Squarespace. And other variations of this question could be something like this. What about your current site do you not like? Or what do you want to update with your new site on Squarespace? So this way you can get a really good feel of what the goal of the client is. You asked this question already in the beginning, but you're asking it again in a different way. Now, these next questions, you might have the answers already, so just be mindful of that. You're not asking repeat questions for no reason. But let's go through a few more questions now. Do you have the content ready? This is a good question if they even have a site up. It's important to know, do they have the new content ready? If there is new content, what's the expectation there? Are you writing the content or do they have someone else writing the content? It's good to understand what the process looks like for the client or what they're thinking. Next, define the details of the site on the call in a very high level view. So say, for example, how many pages do you think this website is? Or you could ask a question if they're a consultant and you think it's about a 5 to 7 page website. You can say, while we're talking, I feel like this is probably a 5 to 7 page website. Is that correct? And then that way you can get feedback from the client immediately if that makes sense. From there, you could ask questions. Do you need a store? Do you need a blog? Again, being relevant to the client. If they're a consultant, they might not need a store if they haven't mentioned anything about a store. But you could ask questions relevant to those items and find out what you need to create from there. Next, when do you want to get the site up? This is important for the people who are in a rush. Often by the time they've come to a web designer, they're actually 2 weeks behind. So in that case, just define a bit of the information of what their process looks like. If they tell you they need the site up quickly, well, there's a rush fee. So make sure you communicate a bit about the timeline. If there's no big press on the timeline, then you can just talk about how the process usually goes. It's a 4 to 6 week process. It's a 4 to 8 week process. It's a 1 week process. Whatever that might look like for your business, you could let them know. And they might ask that question as well. How long does it take to get a site up? Now, this question is important if you're working with a team or a large company. Sometimes the CEO will have their admin or someone on their team make the call, and that's who you're talking to. But at the end of the day, the CEO is going to make the final decisions. I always advise you have access to that person and or you get clear direction on who you're taking direction from. And it should always be one person. I don't want to get notes from 3 or 4 different people on 3 or 4 of the same pages on the site, and then it's just complicated. One person said this, another person said that. That is not ideal. You want to define, I will work with one contact person. There could be 4 or 5 people who ask questions or are CC'd on emails, but at the end of the day, who is the final decision maker on this? And do I have access to them? Projects that I did not have access to the final decision maker got complicated and confusing quickly. So you want to make sure you have that system in place. In other cases, it's worth noting, sometimes there's a marketing manager who is the final decision maker within their field, but for the whole company, there might be other people who speak into it. Their job is to disseminate all that information and present it to you in a clear way for clear results. That relationship works really well if that person is on top of their game. Often, most people in that position are, but you do want to clarify again what that role is, who you communicate with, who's the guiding force. Next, this question again might be something you already know from their current site or something they've said, but you want to ask, do they have a logo? Do they have brand font? Do they have brand colors? That's going to be really important for the way you develop the site. Are they expecting you to design those, or do they already have them? If they're expecting you to do it, it could be an upsell for the project, so it's worth keeping that in mind. For smaller businesses, they often have a logo. They do not have fonts or colors. I have found that if they tell you one ideal color for their site, everything else is pretty simple to define. So it's a bit of a risk, but if they know that their favorite color is a royal blue and you have a general sense of the fonts that they like, it's pretty easy to get a good feel for them. Next, do you have any sites you want to emulate? Personally, I put this question in my questionnaire, but it might be helpful in the conversation depending on what the client's saying. If you can't get a good visual of what they're saying, or you think they don't know really what they want, if they reference like, I want a site that looks like Nike.com or Amazon.com, I dread when clients say that because it's just completely unrealistic. When you're on the call and you're trying to make sense of this, a great way to find out is, hey, do you have sites you want to emulate? If so, they could send you a link or two while you're on the call, or you could just say, hey, in the questionnaire, there's a place for you to put those, please send them, and later on in the project, you could review it. Next, are there any big features or custom features that you want for your website? Again, by this point, you could have a clear sense of what their website is. So you can ask, are there any special features you need for your e-commerce store? Or are there any special features you need for this? Are there any special features you need for checkout or for the products or for the pages or for the blog posts? Try to understand where they are. Okay, cool. You guys still with me? Now, let's talk about pricing. This is definitely something you want to cover in the first call before you get off the phone. You want to know exactly what you're going to be quoting. Do not get off the phone without knowing exactly what you're going to be quoting. Okay, so there's two ways to approach this. If you're just starting out, I highly recommend packages. And if you have packages on your website, it's a good way to go about this. So again, in the initial intake form, they may have said, I want package B, the professional package. On the phone, you can clarify that with them. With all the information you've gathered so far, at this point, you can talk to them and say, hey, so it looks like package B is what you signed up for, but actually package C is what makes most sense for you. And they'll say, yeah, that makes sense. Let's go for it. Or you could say something like this. Hey, it looks like you chose the professional package. That's a great place for you to start. The only thing I would say is you're going to need this, or that. And to do that, it'll cost an extra $250, $400, or $300. Does that work in your budget? So now you can really use all the information you've gathered to make sure the scope is correct from the beginning. Alternatively, here's the other option. Let's say they message you for a website and you don't have set pricing on your site. Again, if you're starting out, this might be too advanced, but if it works for you, great. The question you'll ask is, what is your budget? Once you work with larger companies or teams, they'll probably have a budget in place for this project. And they'll let you know what that budget is. 3K, 12K, 6K, whatever number that is, you could then create a package, a proposal for them. So you definitely want to define that while you're on the call. Now, alongside all of these questions, you're going to learn so much about the client. And remember this, whoever asks more questions on the call is in charge of the call. So make sure that is you. Don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. Just go through the questions. Have these questions listed on a piece of paper as you begin, or your note-taking app, or whatever that might be. Check the link down below. We'll have a blog post or some type of article where you can get all these questions. Grab these questions and just go through them while you're on the call. It's really simple. It's really easy. And it makes you look 100,000% professional. Next, what you want to keep in mind, I have another video about things you should explain to the client while you're on the call. So if you found this content helpful, this other video about what you should explain, link down below, is there for you, and it's gonna be so helpful for you to understand, okay, when you've talked about budget, how do you set a range? Or how do you define differences in websites? Clients ask this all the time. What's the difference between a $4,000 website and a $6,000 website? Well, there's a few analogies that I use that work really well to be clear for the client. So check out that link below for that other video on what to explain on your first call with a client. And with that, I hope you guys got value from today's video. If you did, hit that like button. And if you want more content like this, consider subscribing. We publish 3 new videos a week for you to help you grow in your business as an online entrepreneur, freelancer, or side hustle. With that, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.